How you doing this morning?
Hang in there.
Good. Good. All right, we're ready to continue, and with that, will the state call your first witness?
Thank you. Judge, the state of Texas calls Meghan Verikas.
Proceed.
All right, Ms. Verikas, could you please state your name for the record?
Meghan Verikas.
And Ms. Verikas, tell us just briefly a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've lived in Houston, Texas for about 3 years. I'm a general manager of a hotel and restaurant in downtown Houston.
If you would, could you pull that microphone just a little bit closer to you so that we can hear you?
Now, don't get too close to it because it'll have a backlash, but...
Okay, try that.
We'll experiment. All right, let's continue.
All right, so you said you're from Pittsburgh, is that right?
Correct.
And you live in Houston. How long have you been in Houston?
About 3 years.
And what do you do for a living here in Houston?
I manage a hotel and a restaurant in downtown.
Okay, and is that something that you've always done?
For the most part, yes.
Did you do that when you were back in Pittsburgh?
I did.
What hotel did you work for when you were in Pittsburgh?
I've worked for several. Prior to leaving, I worked for a full-service Marriott, and I worked for Cambria Suites.
And what hotel do you work for here in Houston?
Holiday Inn.
And where is that located at?
1616 Main Street.
Is that here downtown?
Yes.
And have you worked there since you moved to Houston?
No.
Okay. How long have you been there?
I've been at that property for 1.5 years.
I want to take you back in time to the first time that you met an individual by the name of Leon Jacob. Do you know Leon Jacob?
Yes.
How do you know Leon?
He was my boyfriend.
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
And if you would, for the record, could you point him out and identify something that he's wearing?
He's over here in the glasses and blue cap.
Honor, may the record reflect this witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so reflect.
How did you meet the defendant?
He was a guest at one of my other hotels.
Was
In
he a
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh? Was he a long-time guest or a short-time guest?
He was a long-term guest.
And what does that mean?
He stayed for an extended period of time, over 7 days.
When you first... Okay. You seem nervous. Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Okay. Just take a deep breath. Okay. So when you first met Leon, you said that you met him. He was a long-term resident at the hotel you were working at. And did you all begin dating while you were working at the hotel?
Yes.
And about how long did you date him while you were living up in Pittsburgh?
A few months.
At some point, did he convince you to move to Houston?
Yes.
What did he tell you about why he wanted to move to Houston?
It was a better life, and his family was here, and he was going to be a doctor here.
What was your understanding of his occupation while he was up in Pittsburgh?
He had worked for UPMC as a physician, doing surgery.
And what is UPMC?
University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, primarily Presbyterian Hospital.
So he indicated to you that he was working as a surgeon over at that hospital.
Correct.
Would you see him at the hotel in scrubs or in a suit, or how would he be dressed when you would see him?
He was in scrubs, or he was in like street clothes.
So when you started dating and he talks to you about moving to Texas, what are you thinking?
I don't know. I don't
Did you
know.
want to come to Texas?
I wanted to leave Pittsburgh, yes.
And at the time when you first initially started dating, excuse me, the defendant, were you married?
I was.
Were you at the end of your marriage?
We were having problems, but Leon was certainly a catalyst to that.
And did you ultimately get a divorce?
Yes.
When did you decide or make the decision that you would come with the defendant to Houston?
I don't recall. Probably sometime September, October
Of what year?
2014.
And so did you move down here with him?
Yes.
And where did you all live?
We had an apartment in West University,
What was the name of that apartment complex?
the Village at West University.
And when you lived at the apartment, were you and Leon living there together?
Yes.
And was he working here as a medical doctor?
No.
Were you working?
Yes.
What were you doing?
I was a director of sales for some Marriott properties.
And when did you switch from the Marriott properties over to the Holiday Inn?
June of 2016.
And what did you do for the Holiday Inn here in downtown?
I was the director of sales and now I'm the general manager.
Was Leon working?
Leon was working sporadically. When we initially came here, he was working for a family friend at a cookware company. He was waiting for his license and he was getting a surgical assistant's certificate.
So now let's fast forward and let's go to January of 2017. Without going into the facts, did you and Leon have a pretty bad fight in
Yes.
January? And did that result in you going to the police?
Yes.
And ultimately, did the police file charges in that case?
Yes.
Do you know what charges were filed?
Assault against a family member?
And the family member being you as his girlfriend, right?
Correct.
When you and Leon had that initial fight, do you remember what day it was?
It was a Thursday in January. I believe it was the 9th.
With the 12th?
12th sounds...
So it was a Thursday night. When you all had your fight, after you had the fight, where did you go?
I went to his mother's house.
And what is his mother's name?
Golda Jacob.
And did you stay at his mother's house?
I did not.
Where did you go?
I stayed with his brother, Adam Jacob, and his wife, Leslie Jacob.
How long did you stay with him?
2 days.
While you were staying with them, was the defendant trying to contact you?
Yes.
What was he doing?
Calling, emailing, texting Leslie, texting Adam, showing up at the house.
And are you responding to him?
At that point, I may still have been responding.
What kinds of things were you saying to him?
Please leave me alone. I don't want to be with you. Don't call me.
In your mind, were y'all broken up?
Yes.
And in your mind, were you final?
Yes.
Had this been a long time coming, or was this going to be a surprise to the defendant that this was the end of your relationship?
It was a long time coming. I tried to leave several times.
And so was this the final straw for you?
Correct.
So while you're staying over at Leslie's house, you've mentioned that he's calling you, he's emailing you, he's texting you. Does he actually show up?
Yes.
What happens when he shows up?
The first day he showed up, he left a bag of my clothing and flowers with a card. The second day, when Leslie and I were there by ourselves, he came in and knocked on the door, and I obviously didn't want to be near him, so I hid in a closet.
You did what?
Hid in a closet
Why did you hide in a closet?
because I was afraid of Leon.
What happened while you were hiding in that closet?
He came in and was screaming and yelling at Leslie and basically continued to yell and was looking for me, and he said, I know that bitch is here.
So he said, I know that bitch is here.
Mm-hmm.
Could you hear him saying that?
Yes.
Were you scared?
Very scared.
How long do you think you had to hide in that closet for?
It was about 5-10 minutes because Leslie had asked him to leave because her daughter was sleeping.
Did he eventually leave?
Yes.
How did that affect how you felt about your safety around the defendant?
I was terrified that he would come into his brother's home with his niece sleeping and say something like that.
What did you do after that?
Obviously, I stayed there and I got up early in the morning and left and found another place to stay
Why did you leave Leslie's house?
because he knew I was there.
Where did you go from there?
I spoke with my employer and I was able to get a room at the hotel, unregistered.
During this time period after you leave Leslie's and now you've checked into a hotel, is the defendant still contacting you?
Yes.
How's he contacting you?
At this point, I hadn't changed my phone number. I believe I changed my phone number a few days later, but he was calling, texting, emailing. He actually showed up at my place of work. He was calling the front desk at my job as well.
Now, at your job, where is your office in relation to, we think of the hotel lobby. Do you work in the lobby or do you work in an office off the lobby?
I work in an office outside of the lobby.
So when the defendant showed up, where did he go at the hotel?
He would call the front desk or show up at the front desk, or he would be at the valet stand.
Did you give the people that you worked with any kind of instructions or give them any information about the defendant?
Correct. They knew what his vehicle was, and they obviously had met him at hotel functions, at a Christmas party, so they knew who he was, and to make sure that if he was there, if they saw his vehicle, to make sure that I would not come in contact with him.
So were your coworkers instructed not to let the defendant anywhere near you
Correct.
or on the property?
Correct.
Do you know if the fact that he was not wanted on the property was actually conveyed to the defendant?
Yes.
Who conveyed that to him?
I said that.
Did anyone else say that to him?
I believe a police officer did.
Okay, so he was told, don't come back.
Correct.
Did he continue to come back?
Yeah, I mean, he sent people into my work to speak with me, and he kept calling the front desk. He had other people call the front desk and try to get transferred to me. And then he, when walking outside, we saw his vehicle parked in the adjacent lots.
What was he doing that time?
One time the vehicle was just there, and then we didn't see him, and because they weren't able to see him, the police just made a report. The final time he was in the bushes outside on a cell phone waiting for me. He also followed me in a vehicle when I pulled out.
Let me stop you right there and let's back up a little bit because I want to talk about each of those things. First off, as a result of that assault family member charge being filed, did the court issue a magistrate's order of emergency protection at some point?
I believe February 14th, maybe.
Okay, and so based on that, was the defendant required by law not to have contact with you?
Yes.
In addition to the magistrate's order of emergency protection, did you seek further protection from the defendant?
I did everything I could to stay away from him.
Did you get a 2-year protective order?
Yes.
And is that something that you had to initiate?
Yes.
And did you go to court for that?
I did.
And did you get a 2-year protective order issued, keeping the defendant away from you for 2 years?
Yes.
Was that a contested matter?
When we went for the protective order, I walked in and they said he wanted to have a hearing. Leon wanted to have a hearing. After we stood up in front of the judge and got sworn in, they basically said that Leon will go ahead and give you the protective order without the hearing. And at that time, the district attorney, Beth Barron, said that Leon will be getting arrested for stalking today.
So did the court issue the 2-year protective order?
Yes.
And was that the same day also that the stalking charges filed against him?
That he got arrested for that, yes.
You mentioned some conduct that he did that concerned you, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. For one, you said one day you saw him in the bushes outside your work. Describe for us what he was doing that day.
He was standing there on a cell phone in a green shirt, and then as we walk out, me and my coworker walked out, he said that he wanted to talk to me, but he was standing there just staring at the entrance of my workplace.
Is this before or after he's been told, don't come here?
It's definitely been after.
And is this before or after the magistrate's order of emergency protection has been issued by a court?
I believe this is before.
Did you take extra precautions based on that behavior as far as your comings and goings with your work?
Yes. Some days it took me multiple hours to get home because I felt like I was being followed. I had my vehicle checked for devices that could be tracked. I had my employees park my car in a different location because I didn't want my vehicle to be seen.
Why did you take all these steps?
Because he wouldn't leave me alone.
During this time, is he continuing to text you?
After about 3 days, I had changed my phone number, so that wasn't available. So he had started to email me at my personal email address along with my work email address.
And so he's sending you emails. Is he still trying to either contact himself or have other people do that as well?
Yes.
Talk to me, you said that one time he followed you in your car. Was that before or after the protective order had been issued?
I believe it was before.
Tell me about that.
I pulled out of the garage onto P Street and his vehicle was immediately behind me. At that point, I called 911 to let them know that, my ex-boyfriend who assaulted me was in a car behind me. And I stayed on the phone with the police, just hysterical. And then at some point, Leon had gotten out of his vehicle in front of mine, just yelling and waving his hands, saying, just talk to me, I need to talk to you.
And did you talk to him?
No, I continued to drive around him. Eventually, I pulled in front of the Travis Street Police Station.
The emails that he's sending you, are they friendly emails? Are they angry emails?
It was a mixture. Obviously, some of them were, I love you, I want you back, and then some of them were like, you're making a mistake, how could you do this to me? They were arranged.
At some point, when this 2-year protective order is filed, do you go from the hotel and stay somewhere else?
I was able to secure an apartment.
And was this apartment in the same complex that you originally lived in, or was it somewhere different?
Completely different.
Why did you switch apartments?
Because I felt unsafe in the location that I lived in with Leon.
Okay, I want to fast forward a little bit, and I want to talk to you about when you were first contacted by the Houston Police Department about the threat on your life. When did you first learn that there had been a threat to your life?
It was again a Thursday. I think it was February 23rd, around 8 or 9 o'clock. A police officer named Officer Sharp contacted me and said, I'm a police officer.
I sustain that.
Without saying what was said, did an officer with the Houston Police Department contact you?
Yes.
And based on your conversation, did you end up meeting with some officers with the Houston Police Department?
The following day, Friday.
And once you met with them, were you concerned?
Yes.
Were you concerned for your safety?
Yes.
So what did you do in response to talking with those officers?
After I met with the detectives that Friday, my coworker made arrangements for me to go to Pittsburgh the next day.
Prior to this time, had the idea of you going to Pittsburgh been brought to you by anyone else?
No, because I have no family here and didn't have any other support, I decided to go stay with my parents.
Did you pay for that ticket to go up to Pittsburgh?
Yes, I did.
So did you leave for Pittsburgh and go to Pittsburgh?
Yes.
And how long did you stay in Pittsburgh for?
About 2 weeks.
During that time, did the defendant try and email you or try and get in touch with you?
At this point, I don't recall.
When did you come back from Pittsburgh?
Sometime in March, after I was contacted by HPD.
Without saying what was said, did HPD contact you about returning to Houston?
Yes.
And did you return to Houston?
Yes.
And once you returned to Houston, did you meet with some officers of the Houston Police Department?
Yes, I did.
And did you receive more details about what was going on with their investigation?
Yes.
And as part of that, did they ask you to do something for them?
Yes, they did.
What did they ask you to do?
Sustain.
What did you do?
I got in a vehicle with the police officers and went to a location to take photos.
Do you know why they wanted to take photos of you?
Because
Full of preclusion, Your Honor. I ask you, mindset of the officers
If she knows,
in
Judge.
this action?
I think she can testify if she knows. It's overruled. Me and
Because somebody had been paid to kill me and they needed that as backup, or...
So did they ask you to stage some photographs, making it look like you had actually been kidnapped?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Did they take you to one of their locations and take some photographs of you?
Yes.
Before I show you these photographs, can you describe for the members of the jury what they had you do?
I sat in a chair in a warehouse, and they zip tied my hands and my feet and put duct tape around my mouth to make me look as if I had been kidnapped. I had sat in that parking lot for an extended period of time, so I was crying and really upset.
Okay, I'm going to show you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 22, 23, and 24. Are those the photographs that were taken of you back in March of 2017 as part of the investigation?
Yes.
Your Honor, this state offers State's Exhibit 22, 23, and 24, and I'll tender to opposing counsel for any objection.
Objection.
States 22, 23.
24 are admitted.
May I publish,
You
Judge?
may.
Okay, I'm showing you what's been entered as State's Exhibit number 22. And you mentioned that they had duct tape you. And it's a little bit hard to see. Judge, may I walk this photograph in front of the jury?
You may.
Okay, I'm going to show the jury what's now been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit number 24, and I want to talk to you about that.
Do I need it?
Okay, now I'm going to walk. In this picture, I see that there's duct tape wrapped around your entire head. Did they actually?
Let's keep your voice up.
Did they actually wrap you with duct tape?
Yes.
And your face is very red in this photograph. Why is that?
Because I was crying. Because I was upset.
I'm going to show you what's been entered as State's Exhibit number 23. Is this another photograph that was taken of you by the undercover officers?
Yes.
Do you remember about what time of day these photographs were taken?
Probably around, because they picked me up directly from work. So 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And did you stay at the location where the photographs were taken?
For an
Stop
extended...
for a second, please. Yes, sir.
And I just need a date if she knows.
It was sometime in March.
So did you stay at the location with the officers?
For several hours.
And then where did you go?
They took me to a hotel in the Galleria.
And did you stay at that hotel?
Yes, I did.
While you were at that location taking photographs, did you meet an individual by the name of McDaniel?
Yes.
And did you observe some photographs be taken of him as well?
Yes, I did.
After you're taken to the hotel at the Galleria, at some point did you learn that the defendant had been arrested and was now in custody for solicitation to commit capital murder?
Very early in the morning, yes.
Okay, so you're at the hotel, you're staying at the hotel, and then in the early morning hours after you get to the hotel, that's when you learn it.
Correct.
Before this or prior to this, had you ever met anyone named Motaz Aziz?
No.
Did you know anyone named Zach that was friends with the defendant?
No.
Did anyone ever approach you or kidnap you and take you to a hotel and demand that you meet with the defendant?
No.
While you're staying at the hotel and you're waiting for things to unfold, do you get some instructions, without saying what was said, do you get some instructions from an Officer Durant?
Yes.
What do you do in response to his request?
I believe I sent an email or a text message
And who did you send that to?
to Leon.
And what did you say in the message?
I love you, I want to get back together, or something along those lines.
And why did you do that?
Because I was instructed to by the police.
I'm sorry, I did not hear that.
You were
I was
instructed?
instructed to by the
Oh,
police.
I'm sorry, thanks.
And did the defendant ever respond to that email or text message?
No,
Can you remember if it was an email or a text message?
I honestly don't remember.
Judge, I pass the witness.
From the defense, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is George Parnham. Verikas, correct?
Verikas.
Verikas?
Verikas.
Verikas, pardon me. If I mispronounce that, it's not intentional.
Understood.
I have some questions for you on cross-examination, and my associate here, Matt Popisil, represent Leon. Let's go back to the beginning of your testimony to the prosecution. It's my understanding that you and Leon were living in Pittsburgh. No?
I lived in Pittsburgh and Leon stayed at the hotel in Pittsburgh.
Okay. But when you all first met, you were both in Pittsburgh, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you began a relationship with Leon while you were both in Pittsburgh.
Correct.
And at some point in time, did you move in with him in Pittsburgh?
No.
All right. But how long a period of time were you together in Pittsburgh? In a relationship?
Several months.
All right. And was it obvious to you that at some point in time while in Pittsburgh, you all became in love with each other?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Is that a question or an answer?
Yes.
All right. And when, as part of being in love with him and he with you, there was a determination made that you would move to Houston.
Correct.
And when you moved to Houston, you were with Leon. Is that my understanding?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And tell me about your family ties in Pittsburgh. You had an employment tie.
What do you, my family is from Pittsburgh. I worked in Pittsburgh and I was married and had a home in Pittsburgh.
All right. We'll get into the marriage in a minute, but you were employed in Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Okay. And look, for the sake of the court reporter, you have to verbally respond so she can take your answers down, all right?
Okay.
Okay. And you had family in Pittsburgh,
Yes.
and you were married at the time.
Yes.
And when you moved with Leon to Houston, were you married?
I was in the process of a divorce, yes.
But my question is...
Yes, I was married.
All right. And when you came to Houston, how long did you stay with Leon before you left?
Can you explain the question?
Sure. How long did you stay with Leon before you all split up?
Almost 2.5 years, 2 years.
Okay. And is that during that 2-year period of time you were living with him?
Correct.
And you mentioned, and I didn't quite get this, what were you doing for as far as employment's concerned?
I was the director of sales at a hotel and I'm a hotel manager.
All right. Now, when did you actually split up? Do you remember?
When Leon and I broke up,
Yes.
January
Of
2017.
all right. May I approach you with this, Your Honor?
You may.
I'd like to have this marked for identification. I believe it's defendant's one. I'm sorry?
Pre-trial, you have to mark one. During pre-trial, you do.
I did, all right, whatever the new number is. Sorry.
State has no objection to defense exhibit number 2.
Didn't remember him offering it yet. Has he offered it?
Not yet, sir. I would offer this in evidence as defendant's exhibit 2.
And for the record, state what it is.
Yes, it is a email from Leon Jacob to Megan dated February the 1st, 2017.
It's admitted, and that's the exhibit 2.
Exhibit number 2.
Okay, very well, thank you.
Approach.
You know.
Ms. Verikas, I have a couple of questions for you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as defendant's exhibit 2. Would you identify that document for us?
It says subject, I love us, and it's from Leon, and the email address is leonlovesmeganv@gmail.com.
All right. And
And this was sent to my email, my personal email, my work email, and Leon's email.
okay, thank you. Do you remember receiving this?
Yes, I do.
And Leon, as a matter of fact, had an email address entitled Leon Loves Megan. Correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And did this email come from that particular email address?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, it's rather lengthy, is it not? I'd like to read portions of these, or if not all of this, to the jury, or would you prefer to read it yourself?
No, you're welcome to do so.
I'm sorry?
That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Entitled, Megan, you always said that you loved us. I truly do not understand why you have run away from us. After all we have gone through, this is a true mystery to me. I know that the night we had our last fight was not the best moment in our relationship, but it did not warrant what has happened since. You told me you loved me. You told me you would never leave me. You told me that I could trust you with my heart. I take full responsibility for what happened. I am sorry. Did you respond to Leon as a result of this email?
I don't recall.
Okay. If you had responded, you would have recalled that, correct?
I received several emails, and most of them I did not respond to. I don't think I responded to that particular one, but I cannot remember.
All right. Now, is it obvious from this particular email that Leon has deep feelings for you?
Yes.
All right. And he wanted you back together with him, did he not?
Yes.
All right. And going on, we had such a wonderful time. We both got back from New Year's, the weekend and days before that truly stupid incident, which I take responsibility for, were so happy for us. I love and I'm in love with you, and I am sorry. Now, I take it that that refers to that issue with the assault, correct?
Yes.
All right. We have been through a lot together. You and I are soulmates. You left everything you knew in the world to come here, and I have shown you a wonderful life. I know I had some low professional times and personal times, and you stood by me the whole time. I have stood by you as well. I have taken care of you. I have nurtured you, and I made you bedroom beds when we were sick, when you were sick. Is all that basically correct?
Yes.
All right. Now that I have started to make some real money, like 15, well, I can't, do you know what BTW means?
By the way.
Pardon?
By the way.
Oh, by the way, all right, thanks. By the way, 17,500 and counting the last 4 weeks, and that is after taxes. You choose to leave. You not only left me, but you left Dahlia. You took her from me and gave her to the farm. By the way, I'm getting her back soon for us. You've walked away from 2 boys who were asking you about you on a daily basis. And who are the 2 boys?
James and Cash, Jacob, Leon's sons.
All right. And do you know how old they were?
9 and 3.
Okay, and when you and Leon were together, was it common to have the boys with Leon and you?
I may have spent close to 10 days with the kids, 14 total, in our entire relationship.
All right. Now, those are full days.
When the kids came to Chicago or went on vacation in Florida.
All right, and did you were on vacation in Florida with Leon and his kids?
Yes.
And you were on vacation in Chicago?
I never went to Chicago with Leon and his children.
Okay. But you would know and recognize them if they came into the courtroom?
Of course.
I believe we can recover from this, but it's up to you. I sent you a list of things I would do to make this right and got no response. Instead, you tried to have me charged with crimes. How can you tell someone you love them so much and so often and then do that? We literally had sex the night before this incident, and you slept on my chest and told me how happy you were. This does not make sense. Is that pretty much accurate?
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. Well, were you with him the night before he was...
We lived together, yes.
All right, and were you with him the night before?
Yes.
And I mean sexually?
I can't recall.
Okay. But you can't dispute what I just read, can you?
You're asking about feelings, so I don't know how to...
Okay, you want to take a look at that paragraph? Tell me if you dispute anything in there.
I think she answered that she can't recall.
Oh, I'm sorry, just, okay. I'm sorry I took the furniture, it was wrong of me, I've offered to give it back with no response. I've offered to give you money, which I now know you need desperately now. Evidently, you have gotten a new place to live, even though you can't break the lease immediately. Although I do know you have made some sort of arrangements to break it. I will give you the furniture back and wait to move into your new home if you allow me. If you do not respond to this email, I will donate all the furniture to charity by the middle of next week. This is not a threat, but I can't share it with you next. I don't want it. I know you have been moving money from our account to pay off what I've estimated at almost $17,000 in debt, which you were dishonest about from the start. I forgive you for and will help pay it off. Is that an accurate statement?
No, sir, it's not.
Okay. If you really love me the way you said you do, then none of this makes sense. If you're really over this, then you could never have really meant the things you said about how you love me. I do not believe there is another man, because that would have been impossible to given the bubble we isolated ourselves in. I believe you got scared of the reaction of everyone after it made it worse, and I cannot even believe what Leslie was doing behind my back. I actually feel more betrayed by her than you. I will take you back still if you will have me. If you are getting ready to run before this incident, you had a funny way of showing it considering how happy we were. But if that was the case, all you had to do was to tell me you slept with someone else and would have been over. Leon talks about the times that you were happy together. I think you testified previously that there were times that you were happy together with Leon, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you really want me to go away, just tell me you've slept with someone else since you left, and I will believe you really never cared for me the way you claimed, and it will be destroyed. But over you, open print, please don't take this option, because if you have done that, it goes against everything you are as a person. And you are not the person I thought you were. For the record, I do not think you've done this, close friend. I have left you alone as best I know I am capable. I have known where you were every day since you left, but have not come to you in order to give you time, except one time at work in order to offer you the furniture back and talk a little bit. Did he ever offer the furniture back to you? If you remember.
I didn't respond to any of those requests as advised by the police.
All right, well, that's not really my question. My question is, do you know whether or not he offered the furniture back to you?
He did so in emails, yes.
Okay. I offered to give you the furniture back and talk a bit, and you ran away again from a man who has spent 3 years with and said you loved with all your being. That does not make sense. You've now been made to doubt myself and feel as if I can ever trust my judgment, because I believe you really love me with all your heart and being. I believe that love can overcome anything, and that this situation can be fixed if you really meant the way you feel about me. It's been 3 weeks since we kissed, hugged, and loved. It's time to come home, or at least start a new one together. I was going to ask you to marry me on Super Bowl Sunday. That ring has already been made. I can still do that if you will forgive me and take me back. I love you, your Leon. And then he talks about this email account, and he's asking you to please respond. But if it doesn't happen, I won't check it again. It's all too painful. And he sent another email on February the 1st, correct? At 7 a.m., if you recall. And the email that I just wrote you came at 2:19 in the morning. Take a look at that, would you?
219, yes.
Pardon?
219.
All right. And the next email that he writes you is on what date, please?
February 1st,
That same year.
2017 at 7 a.m.
All right. Megan, one last thing. How can you not miss us? How can you not miss coming home and having dinner every night together, walking together, kissing, the way we smell to each other, the way we make love to each other, the way how often and free we are around each other, the snuggles, the hugs, the laughs. I could go on forever, but I won't, because if you don't miss that, then it was all a lie, which I do not think it was. It took us a long time to get so open and free with each other. It was a team effort the whole way. I can't imagine doing this again with someone else. I don't want to. I found my mate. So for the last time, please open your heart back up and we can figure this out and move on with each other. We have another email, do we not?
February 5th, 2017,
At,
4:16 p.m.
all right, and this is to you from Lynn. Correct?
Yes.
And if I may read this, why can't you acknowledge you miss me and are sad? It's impossible you ever felt the way you said you did if you can't admit you want a life with me. I have so many pictures and videos of us, and especially recently, like a few the weekend before we got in the fight in that week, that show how happy is so happy. This does not make sense. Let me take you to dinner tonight? ? You can call me, I believe you know my number. There's a document attached that's been admitted. Can you tell me what that is?
I have no idea what that is.
Okay. You mentioned that there was a protective order entered into on the February the 21st? Or what, that's the date that it was filed, pardon me.
That was the date I went to court.
Okay. And actually, it was an agreed to no contact order. Correct?
I was told it was a protective order.
All right. Was Leon present?
Yes, he was.
And did he agree to have a no contact order?
Yes, he did.
I'm sorry?
Yes, he did.
All right. I'm going to show you, has this been admitted?
Is it Mark?
I won't admit it, Your Honor, that's fine. But it's a no contact, and he agreed to that, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. When did you file the assault charge?
In January. I don't remember the exact date.
Would you agree with me that it was approximately 3 weeks after the incident?
I don't believe so, no.
All right.
It was several days because I had to take time off of work in order to sit at the police station to get that.
So you disagree that it was approximately 3 weeks?
I don't believe it was.
Okay, how much time do you believe elapsed between the time that you indicate that the assault took place and you filed charges?
Week and a half.
Huh?
Week and a half, maybe, 10 days.
All right. And where were you staying at the time between the assault and the 10 days? Pardon me, between the assault and the time that you filed charges?
I stayed with his brother for 2 days, and then I stayed at a hotel.
All right. I think you indicated you stayed with his mother for a period of time.
I never stayed with his mother.
All right. Were you in contact with his mother?
His family called to check on me, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes,
All right. And you stayed with Leon's brother also?
I only stayed with Leon's brother and at a hotel.
What's Leon's brother's name?
Adam, Jacob.
All right.
You may. Say, oh, did you want to approach me?
No, I'll approach the witness.
Okay.
Attended the prosecution as defendant's exhibit 3 and asked that it be admitted to the evidence.
Judge, may we approach?
You may.
Ma'am, would you take a look at the,
He told me I'm not allowed to read from it. Right?
I'm sorry?
He wants to ask me to look at that, and you told me not to read from it?
No, out loud.
Okay.
yeah, and I will further ask you not to read here. The only thing I'm interested in this document is the date that the the date that the offense occurred and the date the charges were filed, okay? You don't have to read anything else. Can you read that to the jury?
January 12th, 2017,
And that's when the assault occurred.
correct?
All right. And are you able to read to the jury the date that the charges were actually filed or probable cause was found? Right here.
February 2nd,
Of the same year?
2017.
All right, thank you.
You may. Are you approaching me or the witness?
Just approaching, these marked identification,
Very well. Thank you.
and then give to the prosecution. Ma'am, I'm going to show what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 4 and 5 of the defense and ask you, first of all, if you can identify Exhibit number 4.
It's a screenshot of text messages.
All right, and that would be between you and Leon, correct?
It appears so.
All right. And defendant's Exhibit number 5, just identify that.
Another screenshot of a text message.
And that would be between you and Leon?
Yes, sir.
I just asked if all you be turned up a little bit, not from the witness, but from the,
Well, he's not under a microphone, so I'll ask him to speak up.
I apologize, I will. Sorry. Defendant's Exhibit number 4, again, would you identify that?
It's a text message screenshot from December between Leon and I.
And that is December of what year?
It's not dated, sir.
All right. Well, tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the year you believe that this...
December 2016.
All right. December 29th, correct?
Correct.
All right. And identify defendant's Exhibit number 5 for us.
It's a screenshot of a text message between Leon and I.
And do you know the date that that occurred?
It says January 6th,
Of,
2017.
all right. To the prosecution, they asked that they be admitted into evidence, right?
I have no objection, Judge.
Defense 5 and 6 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah. Oh, it's 4 and 5, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. And defense 4 and 5 are admitted.
I may approach
You may.
Exhibit number 4 between you and Leon. What's the date of that, please?
December 29th.
All right. Now, you've testified that your relationship with Leon was basically in trouble from almost the beginning. Were things that were happening that made you wary and concerned about the relationship?
Yes.
All right. And I'm going to ask you to read your comments, and I will read in the blue Leon's comments. All right? And this is defendant's Exhibit number 4. It's entitled to Megan, correct?
Yes.
And Leon says, "I am sorry, baby." And what's your response?
On the plane, love you.
And in other words, you were on an airplane and you tell Leon that you love him.
Yes.
All right. Love you too. Call me when you land.
Just landed.
I'm sorry.
Call you when I get my baggage.
All right. So he is asking you to call him when you land, and you indicate that you just landed, call you when you get your baggage.
Correct.
All right. Now, he responds, great. Right?
Yes.
All right. The next,
text message is dated December 30th,
at approximately what?
7:30 a.m.
All right. That's on a Friday, correct?
Yes.
All right. Would you read to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your statement to Leon on December the 30th on that Friday?
Good morning, love. I am going to dance class. I miss you. Love you. Don't forget to put a bone and a older soft toy in the bag, not the dinosaur.
All right. So on Friday, you're telling him that you miss him and that you love him. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're not making that up when that happened, are you?
No.
Exhibit number 5. Leon says, sorry, did not mean to call you if it was a butt dial. What does that mean?
I guess he didn't mean to call.
Okay. And then you respond on Friday, January the 6th. Would you read to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury your response? This is January the 6th of what year?
2017.
Okay. Go ahead and read that to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Tomorrow, dinner out and bowling, ? I'll get soup for tonight and salad stuff.
Now, was this dinner with Leon? Is that what you're suggesting? Or are you just saying you're getting dinner by yourself?
No, I would assume that's with both of us. That's how it reads, yes, with Leon.
And Leon says, okay, I have a meeting at 3:30 and then another one later. I am not sure what time I will be home. And your response?
Okay, great, good luck. I'm going to cook and hang out with Stinky, that would be our dog. See you when you get home. Love you, done with work.
And he responds, okay, have fun. Correct?
Yes.
You were shown a couple of photographs of you being bound and gagged, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that was at the insistence of the police, correct?
Yes.
That wasn't your idea,
No, sir.
but you went along with it,
Yes.
all right? And that was ostensibly to show that, for the police to show, if you know, Leon those photographs.
Yes.
All right. Do you know whether or not Leon ever looked at those photographs?
No, sir, I don't know.
Do you know whether or not he was ever presented those photographs by the police and did not want to look at them?
I'm unaware, sir.
Okay. May I approach you with the clerk?
You may.
There's evidence exhibit 2 and evidence for this. I'd like to have this more identification, please. I'd show the first two ones, number 6. That's the number you got it.
Judge State objects to Defense Exhibit 6.
Well, we need to see it, then please bring it up.
I'm sorry.
That's sustained.
Did Leon ever tell you on January the 23rd, 2017,
Which I'm going to object right now because this calls for hearsay.
well,
He's attempting.
your state has gotten into all sorts of things that Leon Jacob told Megan, and we've been able to do that as well. All I'm wanting to do is ask one simple question about what he told her on this particular date of January the 23rd, 2017.
Which is
Well,
right.
if we're getting to the point where you're going to ask this witness as to whether or not your client told her about something that somebody else said, that's hearsay. And I would sustain the state's objection.
But this is something from, Your Honor, I don't mean to argue this, but this is something from Leon to Megan.
If it's about what your client is saying someone else has said, whatever someone else said is hearsay.
But I don't believe it's from a third party, Your Honor. May we approach?
You may.
On January the 23rd, 2017, did Leon send you an email from his email account? You want me to approach?
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, approach.
You may.
I'm sorry.
January 23rd, 2017.
All right, did he send you that email?
He sent it to me and his sister.
All right. And would you read for the jury the content of the email?
Sure. How long have you been doing this? Question mark. I forgive you for anything you've done. Please do not do the same for me. I am in love with you.
All right, this is an email from Leon to you.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you tell us what that email was about?
No, sir.
Were you writing checks to yourself out of the account,
My paycheck went into that account.
okay? And you would write a check to yourself?
To try and deposit to get money to leave.
That's not my question. My question is, would you write a check to yourself out of that account?
My name was on the account. Yes, sir.
Would you write a check out of that account? That's my question.
Yes.
All right. And did Leon know that you were writing a check to your account?
Leon had access to our
Out of
financials.
that account.
Leon had access to the financials, so yes.
So Leon was aware that you were writing checks to yourself.
Yes.
You know how much money you wrote to yourself out of that account?
It's my account.
Not my question. Do you know how much money you wrote to yourself out of that account?
No.
Would $15,000 be sufficient?
I wouldn't know.
Is that because the money is so large that you don't remember how much money you actually took out of that account?
I had that bank account for 2 years.
I'm sorry?
The bank account was open for 2 years, so I don't know.
Okay. I'd ask this witness, Your Honor.
From the state, please.
What? May I have a little?
Yes, please.
Ask the witness, Your Honor.
From the state, please.
Ms. Verikas, during the time that you all are living in Houston, who was making the money that went into that account?
Myself,
Was the defendant working during that time?
very little.
Who paid the bills?
I did.
Who paid the rent?
I did.
Who paid things like your phone bill?
I did.
Who bought the dog?
I did.
Who bought your food?
I did.
Did the defendant contribute to the monthly bills at all?
Not significantly,
And why was that?
because he didn't have a full-time employment.
Were both your names on that account?
Yes, they were.
And he had access to the account as well?
Yes, he did.
And did he have a steady paycheck being deposited into that account like you did?
No.
I want to talk to you about the assault family member charges. We talked earlier that the assault initially happened on January the 12th, 2017. Does that sound right?
Correct.
And then does it sound right that it was on January 17th, which would have been that following Tuesday when you went to the police station and reported the assault? Is that correct?
Yes.
And then is it your understanding that the police conducted an investigation and then filed the assault after they completed their investigation?
Correct.
So really, it was just a few days that lapsed between the actual assault and then when you reported it to the police.
Correct.
I want to talk to you about the emails and the text messages. Judge, may I approach the witness?
You may.
First off, we talked about that you got a protective order against the defendant, correct?
Yes.
And was it your understanding that as part of the protective order, that there was a no contact order as well?
Yes.
And so was the defendant allowed to make contact with you?
No.
And did you become aware that he realized that you had gotten a protective order in place?
Yes.
Okay, I want to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit number 49. Can you read that to yourself?
Out loud?
No, to yourself. And State's Exhibit number 50. And I'm going to, at this time, are these emails that were sent to you from Leon?
Yes,
And you remember receiving them?
I do.
All right, this time I'm going to tender to opposing counsel State's Exhibits 49 and 50 for any objection.
I have no objection to the omission of 49. Pardon me. And 50.
And what are they, please?
Emails, Judge?
Emails?
Yes, sir.
All right, 49 and 50 states exhibits admitted.
May I publish these, Judge?
You may.
Ms. Verikas, I want to ask you to read first off the date that this email was sent to you.
Sunday, January 22nd, 2017 at 3:58 a.m.
And what is the subject on this one?
Protective order.
And can you read for me the body of the email on that one?
Did you seriously get a protective order against me? Question mark.
So that's after the protective order is in place. He's contacting you. Fair?
Yes.
Okay, and I want to show you now what's been entered in as State's Exhibit number 50. Can you tell me when you received that email?
January 22nd, 2017, 9:27 a.m.
Okay, so did you receive the email contained in State's Exhibit number 50 after you received the email contained in State's Exhibit number 49?
Yes.
Can you read for the members of the jury the content of State's Exhibit number 50?
Subject line, trust me. Trust me, my love, now we have real issues.
Did you take that as a threat?
Yes.
I want to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit number 52, and I want to flip through it with you. And I want to point out to you some dates here. Those are all emails that you received from the defendant?
Yes.
And were they all emails that you received after he sent the email advising you that he was upset that you had gotten a protective order against him?
Yes.
So he was continuing to contact you after that point?
Yes.
I want to show you what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit number 41. We talked about that you all were having some problems in your relationship prior to the actual breakup. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I want to show you now what's been entered as State's Exhibit number 41. And first off, can you read for the members of the jury the date of this particular, right here, this text exchange? What was the date of that?
January 11th, 2017.
And if you would, could you read for the members of the jury the message that went back and forth between you and the defendant?
The first message is from Leon. It says, "Fuck you."
What is the second message from?
Just because you were stressed about all the shit I told you was going to happen at the hotel before the Super Bowl was going to be here, and you did nothing about it, and now it's last minute and everyone is freaking out, does not mean you're going to take it out on me, you ungrateful little bitch.
So that was prior to the assault that occurred in later January.
Yes.
So you all were having problems in your relationship.
Yes.
Pass the witness, Judge.
Mr. Barr?
Yes, those emails that were just shown to you were back in 2013.
No, sir.
I'm sorry?
You said 2013?
That's what I understood.
No, sir.
What date were those emails?
I approach the witness, Judge.
You may.
These are dated 2017, and they range February, January dates.
All right. And the emails that I showed you, that contained contained information from Leon about loving you, and you responding that I know I love you too, and things of that fashion. Do you remember the general period of time that those occurred?
Those were text messages.
All right, text messages. When did it happen?
December
All right.
2016 and January of 2017.
Okay. So in January of 2017, pardon me. In January 2017, you were communicating with Leon in a love way.
Yours were dated January 6th.
Pardon?
It was dated January 6th.
January the 6th. All right. You were communicating with him in a love way, right?
Yes.
All right. Now, what day did the assault occur?
Thursday, January 12th.
All right. And did you pick up the telephone and call the police?
No, sir.
Did you move out of the house?
I left all of my belongings.
Okay. My question is, did you move out of the house?
I left my home.
All right. And how many days elapsed between the time that you called the police and this assault that you say occurred? How many days?
I didn't call the police. I went to the police station, sir.
I'm sorry?
I went to the police station.
All right. And how many days? You don't need to look at the prosecutor.
Well, she just answered that question previously.
Answer my question. How many days elapsed
About 7.
between the assault and you went to the police station?
About 7.
Okay. And may I approach?
You may.
The state tendered to you two documents. State's Exhibit 49, and that's an email from, or a text. What is it, a text or an email? I'm not up to speed with it.
It's an email, sir.
All right. And Leon is asking, did you seriously get a protection order against me?
That's correct.
And the next day, he texts you or emails you, trust me, my love, now we have real issues.
Yes, sir.
And on direct examination, you took that to be a threat?
Yes.
is it not fair to assume that based on this information, that there are issues related to your relationship?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Is it not fair to say that based on these emails, particularly the last email when he says, "Trust me, my love, now we have real issues," that is simply a reflection on issues in your relationship as opposed to being a threat? He doesn't threaten you here, does he? He's just pointing out the fact that now the relationship has real issues, right? Correct?
The relationship had real issues, yes, sir.
All right. But he doesn't threaten you in that, correct?
Judge, I'm going to object because this is where he answered that question.
Let's sustain it. She answered it.
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, ma'am, thank you for your testimony. You're excused, subject to being recalled, and you can get instructions from the state as to whether you should stay or leave. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have lunch at about 12:20, so still got about an hour. So unless somebody has to take an urgent restroom break, we're going to continue on. Is that all right? Okay, call your next witness.
Daniel the third.
Your Honor, this witness was sworn in earlier.
Thank you. No, how you doing? From the state, please.
Thank you, Judge. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of our jury?
Yes, I'm Marion McDaniel III, also go by Mac,
Mr. McDaniel, briefly, where are you from?
here in Houston, Texas.
How long have you lived here your whole life?
Except for when I was in college, yes.
And you have family here?
I do have family here.
Who lives here with you?
Both of my parents,
Do you have any children?
one child,
And how old is your child?
9.5,
And what's her name?
Natalie.
At some point, have you been married?
Yes,
Okay. Who were you married to?
Valerie McDaniel.
And did you all, do you recall when you all got married?
I do.
Okay. when did you
We were
get-
married for 17 years and divorced in 2016.
After your divorce, did you all share custody of your daughter?
We did,
And was it an arrangement, like a 50-50 arrangement?
absolutely.
So how did that work?
It worked well.
So did you take her 1 week and then the next week Valerie would take her?
Yes, it was week on, week off, correct.
When you had Natalie with you, where would you stay?
Either on the weekends at our Bay House or with my parents.
And then do you know where Natalie would stay on the weeks that Valerie had her?
Yes,
Where was that?
in the Willowwick High Rise.
Is that a condo that Valerie purchased after you all got divorced?
Correct.
At some point, did you learn that Valerie had allowed a man by the name of Leon Jacob to move into her condo with her?
I did.
And what was your initial reaction to that?
My initial reaction was not good
And why was that?
because I was aware of his history, his criminal history.
Did you learn that he had been in fact charged with assault family member and stalking?
I did,
And did it concern you that he would be around your 9-year-old daughter?
absolutely.
So did you convey that concern?
Well, let me stop you. Not 9-year-old daughter, right? Not at that time? Is she, how old is she now?
She's 9.5 now, Your Honor.
So at that time, she would have been,
8?
8, yes.
So were you,
August.
did you want your 8-year-old daughter around the defendant?
Absolutely not.
Did you convey that request to Valerie McDaniel?
I had her agree to language that my family attorney helped me put together, as opposed to going to the court but something that would be binding. I had her agree.
Your Honor, object.
Did you convey to Valerie your wishes that during her weeks that she had Natalie, that Natalie not be around the defendant?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection to the question asked incorporates testimony, Your Honor, and by the state.
Did you convey to Valerie that you did not want the defendant around your daughter on the weeks that she had custody of Natalie?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she agree to that?
She did.
And was it your understanding during that time period that she was abiding by that agreement?
It was.
At some point, did you learn that she was not abiding by the agreement?
I did.
Do you recall about when that was?
I believe it was March 7th at 7:30 in the evening.
And how did you learn that the defendant was still staying over at Valerie's house on the weeks that she had Natalie?
My daughter, Natalie, mentioned Leon.
Did that concern you?
Yes,
And in response to that, did you convey to Valerie that you did not, again, that you did not want your daughter around the defendant on the weeks that she had Natalie?
I did.
I want to go to the next day. So you mentioned that that occurred on March the 7th?
I believe the date's right. That was a Wednesday, if that's the correct date.
Okay. On Thursday, did you receive a visit from some Houston Police Department officers?
I did.
And do you recall who it was that came and talked to you?
I do.
Who was
Well,
it?
it was Sergeant Quinn, and the other officer, I believe, was Cisneros. I'm not sure of his rank, but I could be wrong on that, but Sergeant Quinn was the lead.
About what time in the day did they come and talk to you?
Around noon.
And where were you when they came to talk to you?
I was at my parents', sorry.
Okay. Because she's taking everything down, and if you talk over each other,
Understood.
she gets mad at me.
Okay, understood.
So did, where were you when the officers came to talk to you?
I was at my parents' home.
And without saying what was said, did you in fact have a conversation with Sergeant Quinn and Officer Cisneros?
I did.
And as a result of that conversation, did you become upset?
Beyond.
Okay. What was your reaction?
I told Sergeant Quinn that if they would have been successful, Natalie would have not had any parents.
And that thought upset you?
Unimaginable.
Did they make you concerned for your safety?
Of course, but my first thought was my daughter.
After you have the meeting with Sergeant Quinn and Officer Cisneros, where do you go?
I went to a location behind the police station, the impound yard, or I can't remember the name. But it was a dart lot, I believe, but it was directly north of the police station.
And did the officers ask you to do something for them?
They did.
What did you do for them?
Stage my own death.
Was that hard to do?
Beyond. Unimaginable.
Judge, may I approach the witness? I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked as State's Exhibits 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29. I want you to take a look at these and tell me if you recognize these.
I do.
These pictures fairly and accurately depict how you staged your death back in March of 2017.
I do.
And at this time, State offers State's Exhibit 25 through 29, and I'll tender to opposing counsel for the objections.
Who will approach the bench, Your Honor?
Six and 27 are admitted, but 28 and 29 are not admitted.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Judge, may I publish these?
You may.
Okay, Mr. McDaniel, I'm going to show you first what's been marked and entered now as State's Exhibit number 25. Can you describe for the members of the jury what you're doing here?
Staging my own death.
Did they pour blood on you?
Pig's blood.
And did they ask you, or do you recall why you got into your vehicle to take this picture?
I was staging a carjacking or murder, a carjacking.
So they had you get inside your vehicle to take this photograph.
Correct.
Did officers also take a picture or photograph of you outside of your vehicle?
They did, on the ground next to my vehicle.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's now been entered as State's Exhibit number 27. Is that you in that photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that you laying face down in the grass with that pig's blood all over you?
Yes, ma'am.
After you take these photographs, where do you go?
I went to a hotel.
And why did you do that?
I was advised to turn my phones off and go to a hotel until I was contacted at a later time that day.
And did you keep in touch with Sergeant Quinn with the Houston Police Department?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did he keep you up to date on what was going on in their investigation?
Yes, he did.
At some point, were you asked to go over to the Willowick location?
I was.
Do you recall about what time of day that was?
I do.
Okay, when was that?
I arrived approximately 1:30 in the morning, and I was, I believe Friday morning, yes. Early Friday morning, approximately 1:30 is when I arrived at the high-rise.
And what was the purpose of you going to that high-rise?
To pick up my daughter.
And did you get your daughter?
I did.
And how did that occur?
I walked to the door threshold of the actual unit on the 7th floor, and she was handed to me by Valerie.
Were you instructed by the police not to say anything to Valerie?
Absolutely.
And was Valerie instructed by the police not to say anything to you?
I don't know that. She was inside the unit.
Okay. Did y'all say anything to each other?
We did not.
Okay. Did you take Natalie back with you?
I did.
Prior to this, did you know who Leon Jacob was?
I knew who he was. I had never met him.
How did you know who he was?
Well, I just knew he was a next-door neighbor, or related, the son of the next-door neighbors.
Okay, so who lived next door to you?
Golda Jacob.
And so at some point when you were living next door to Golda, you came across him or met him or something to that effect?
Yes.
Did you ever hang out with him?
Not at all.
Did you ever have any conversations with him?
Never have.
Ever went over to the neighbor's house and he was there and you all had a conversation or anything like that?
Not at all.
Judge, I pass the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, my name is George Parnham. I don't know if we've ever met. I represent Mr. Jacob, and this is my associate, Mr. Papasil, sitting next to me. I just have a few questions for you. Let's go back to your relationship with Valerie. And I believe you indicated that you were divorced in 2016?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And was that a mutual agreement, the divorce, or did she file for divorce, or did you file for divorce, or how did that occur?
She actually filed for divorce.
All right. And did you contest that?
No.
And when she filed, were you all together at the time she filed?
We were not.
All right. And where were you staying at the time that the divorce was filed?
I was staying in our house in Galveston.
Were you staying with anyone?
I was there partially and then with no one, and then I was staying in Houston part of the time with my parents.
All right. Now, was Valerie, at the time the divorce was filed, was she staying with anybody?
I believe she was staying with her parents before she bought the condo.
All right. And When did she start a relationship with Leon, if you know?
Around that time.
Uh,
I mean, she knew Leon at the time that we separated.
And it would have been after your separation that she began a relationship with Leon?
Oh, I don't
After
know.
your divorce? If you know.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
But there's nothing to give you any indication that she had a relationship with Leon before the divorce?
No, there is.
There is?
Yes.
All right. And what prompts you to say that you knew she had a relationship with Leon prior to the divorce?
She told me that she had a relationship or an affair with Leon prior to the
Okay.
divorce.
And that didn't sit very well with you, did it?
No, it did not.
And that didn't sit well with you. When did, let me strike all that. I'm sorry. When did you find out or inquire into Leon's background?
So we're back to, I'm not exactly sure on the timing of your question.
Yes. When
Can
did
you read-
you start inquiring about Leon's background? Specifically, was it before she told you about her relationship with Leon, or was it sometime after she told you about that?
If I understand your question, my parents received a phone call from the Harris County jailer around the first week of March of this year. Last year. And, let me restate that. They received a phone call at the end of January 2017 from the Harris County jailer looking for Valerie McDaniel. And so that's
From the Harris County Jail?
jailer calling for Leon, looking for Valerie. This came to my parents' home. At that point, I, along with my father and my family attorney, started looking into why he was in jail.
Why Leon was in jail?
Correct.
And this is after you found out about the relationship between Leon and Valerie,
Correct.
right? All right.
Correct.
Now, how often would you see your daughter?
We had a week on, week off custody schedule.
Okay. I think you indicated it was not your desire to divorce.
Correct. I would say that. I think I did. I went to therapy, and we went to therapy together. Sure.
To try to reconcile.
To ultimately either reconcile or not. It had become the best co-parents possible if we were not going to be married.
Right. But it wasn't, it was against your wishes for this whole process to take place initially, the divorce, the separation. You wanted to be with Valerie.
I'm not understanding the question.
Sure. Did you want to be with your Valerie, your wife, at the time this process took place and she
I
filed for
wanted
divorce?
to go to therapy and work through the normal therapeutic process and determine whether we could stay married and reconcile or whether we would not. It was better to go our separate ways.
And was the counseling your idea or her idea or a joint idea?
Initially mine, but quickly joint.
Okay. Now, is it fair to say that you would have been, and I know these questions are tough and they're personal questions, and I apologize, but I have to ask them. I know that you had a closeness with Valerie, at least from your perspective, even after the divorce had been filed. Correct?
I'm not understanding your question.
Okay. Did you feel any connection, or did you desire that there be any type of love relationship continued with Valerie?
After the divorce?
Yes, sir.
No.
All right. How about before the divorce, before she filed?
I would say no.
Okay. So after she filed, or before she filed for divorce, you were basically in a particular situation whereby she was going to do her thing and file for divorce, and you were emotionally affected by that, but it happened, and that's the way it is. Would that be a fair assessment of your situation?
No.
Okay. Had she moved in, or had she had a relationship with anybody other than Leon Jacobs, would you have felt a jealousy just because she's with another man?
I'm not understanding your real question you're trying to ask. I apologize, but,
That's all right. Let's say hypothetically that she entered into a relationship with another man. Would you have been jealous about that?
I think at that point, anyone would, and I likely would have, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I would have at that point, sure.
All right. And you certainly felt that way about her relationship with Leon.
Like I said, I didn't really know of a relationship. I knew of an affair that was over the course of a weekend prior to me separating. So I knew nothing about their relationship.
All right. But you knew that there was an affair.
Correct.
And that basically upset you.
It did.
All right. And well. Now, the particular photographs that we've seen, those photographs are photographs of you with, I think you mentioned, and I may be wrong, blood on your head.
Yes, sir.
Was it real blood?
I was told it was animal blood, pig's blood, I believe, which I stated earlier.
You're going to have to speak louder.
I was told it was animal blood or pig's blood, which I stated earlier.
All right. And the police staged this, did they not?
Yes, sir, they did.
They asked you to participate
Yes, sir, they
in
did.
this.
They did.
And that obviously was to show that someone had put a bullet in your head. Correct?
That's what I understand.
All right. How many photographs were taken of that? Do you know?
I'm not aware of how many.
Okay. But that was all done without the participation of Leon Jacob. That was a police unit and you, correct?
Correct.
And do you know if Leon Jacob ever saw those photographs before today?
I do not.
Okay. Do you know if the police ever attempted to show those photographs, or an undercover officer to show those photographs to Leon Jacob?
I don't know if they did or not.
Okay. I may have one moment, Your Honor. Did you receive a threatening phone call from a man by the name of Zach?
I did not.
Okay. Do you know who Zach is?
I do, just from what I've heard in the press over the last years. Yes,
You've
sir.
never met him?
No, sir.
I pass the witness. Thank you, sir.
Nothing further, Judge.
They're subject to recall. Thank you very much. Next witness.
State calls Officer Javier Durant.
I will approach Your Honor.
You may.
Are these two past witnesses, even though they've been excused, are they staying with us? Are they leaving? They're staying?
One of them is staying and one of them is leaving.
And who is leaving?
Mr. McDaniel will be leaving, but he's available by phone. to
Okay.
return.
None, always, sir.
Was your witness not in the hallway?
I know he's here, Judge, I'm just not sure where he is. He texted me an hour ago and said, I'm here. And he said, he just texted back, I'm on my way.
All right, thank you. Let's make sure in the future your witnesses are on this floor, okay?
Yes, Judge. I think he was, because of his occupation, he was trying to avoid this floor with the media.
Okay.
Judge, this witness has not been sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear or affirm that your testimony before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you.
From the state, please.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Javier Durant.
And I see you have a badge around your neck. What do you do for a living?
I am a police officer for the Houston Police Department.
How long have you been with the Houston Police Department?
9.5 years now.
Talk to us about what your current assignment is with the Houston Police Department.
I'm currently assigned to the Major Offenders Division, and I'm assigned to the Career Criminal Squad.
We've heard from a couple officers that are also assigned to that division. Do you all work as a squad?
Yes, ma'am.
And back in March of 2017, who was in charge of your squad?
That is Sergeant Frank Quinn.
And were there other members of your squad that worked with you on various projects that maybe weren't involved with the case that we're going to talk about?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to talk to you, and I want to go back to March of 2017. Were you working under Sergeant Quinn back then?
I was.
And were you approached by Sergeant Quinn to help out in the investigation of a target by the name of Leon Jacob?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it common for you in your capacity as an officer with the Career Criminal Squad for you to go undercover?
Yes, ma'am. We are a proactive undercover squad.
What does that mean?
It means we proactively do undercover assignments, and that's the majority of our assignments are.
Do you have to receive some training to help you if you're going to be an undercover officer?
Yes, ma'am.
And is a lot of that secretive, what you learned?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you apply what you learned at some of those trainings when you went undercover in this particular case?
I did.
And were you actually, in fact, called upon by Sergeant Quinn to go undercover in this case?
I was.
So let's talk about that. When is the first time that you're contacted by Sergeant Quinn in regards to this investigation?
I was contacted by Sergeant Quinn, must have been late February. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was on Saturday. And I was told about this case, a murder for hire investigation.
As part of the first step in your investigation, did you begin researching the target Leon Jacob? Did you do any kind of background work on him?
Other than running a driver's license number and a name just to get a picture of what he looks like.
Did you meet with some investigators with the Harris County District Attorney's Office as part of your investigation?
I did.
And was one of those Lieutenant Mike Malden?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go with Lieutenant Mike Malden to meet with a potential confidential informant in this case?
I did.
And who was the confidential informant?
His name was Motaz Isaiah, and I know him as Zach as well.
You called him Zach.
Correct.
Did Lieutenant Malden and you converse with Zach and get some information from him? Without saying what was said, did you get some information from him?
We did.
And after you got that information, did you believe that you all needed to continue on with this investigation into the defendant, Leon Jacob?
We did.
Did you ask Zach to help you all with the investigation.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you do that?
Because Zach was already in the mix. He knows the defendant. He knew the defendant at the time, and he knew details of the crime. He was a witness, an active witness, and we needed his assistance.
Did you provide any instructions to Zach on what you needed him to do in order for you to become involved and in the loop on this investigation?
Yes, I did.
What instructions did you give to Zach?
I instructed Zach to get the defendant to trust me, to sell me to the defendant in order to help me get closer to the defendant, and in order to make my persona believable, my undercover role more believable.
What do you mean when you say I wanted him to sell me?
When you do undercover cases, you have to take on certain personas. You have to have a backstory. You have to be able to know what you're talking about, and you have to be able to sound like you know what you're talking about. So I needed Zach to talk to the defendant and tell him that I am a certain person, that I've done certain things in the past, give him a little backstory about myself.
What was your belief as to the persona that you would be portraying when you were around the defendant?
My persona at that time for this particular investigation was that of prior military. Zach had mentioned something about a Navy SEAL, and I actually took on the persona of a petty officer, second-class petty officer.
And going into this investigation, what did you believe, and what did you think the defendant would believe you were hired to do?
To murder his ex-girlfriend.
And would that be like a hitman?
Correct.
And so was it your belief going into this investigation that the defendant was looking to hire a hitman to kill his ex-girlfriend?
Yes, it was.
When you initially get involved in this investigation, did you hear anything about a second victim, a McDaniel?
No, not at first.
So at first, you believed that the only potential victim in the case was Meghan Verikas.
That's correct.
Did you instruct Zach to call and make contact with the defendant as part of this selling?
Yes, I did.
And did he do that?
He did.
And were you present for that?
I was.
And did you record that?
I did.
And did you in fact partake in numerous phone calls, not only between Zach and the defendant, but then you and the defendant over the course of your investigation?
We did.
Do you recall how many phone calls were made between you all?
Approximately 12 or 13.
And did I have you review those prior to you coming to court today?
Yes, you did.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
May.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes only as State's Exhibit number 31. This is the disc that you reviewed with the phone calls on them.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, State offers State's Exhibit number 31. This is the disc containing the 12 phone calls.
States 31 is admitted.
May I publish this, Judge?
Yeah.
Officer Durant, I want to start with that initial phone call. Tell the members of the jury before we listen to it what's going on in this first particular phone call.
The first phone call that Zach and I made to the defendant was just it was for Zach to tell the defendant that he would be bringing me on as a subcontract type of investigation, and we set up a meeting date, time, and location where we would meet with the defendant.
Going into this first phone call and into this investigation, what was were you hell-bent at that point that, hey, we're going to make a case on this guy?
No, ma'am.
Have there been instances when you've been called on to investigate a solicitation of capital murder where you've gotten into the investigation and then you've decided, hey, there's not a case here?
There have been.
That's happened?
It's happened. It happens about half of about 50-50.
Is that line of questioning and responses as far as any other types of solicitation cases are concerned and his involvement and the results of those involvements.
So,
I'm sorry, what were you saying, Officer Durant?
Yes, about half of the investigations that we do that are solicitations to commit capital murder, about half follow through with the actual murder or the planned murder, and the other half don't. And what I mean in that is that we will meet with the intended target, the intended suspect, and it is decided that we don't have enough evidence, or maybe the person changed their mind in the heat of the moment. They said something that they didn't actually mean. So they'll tell me, hey, look, thank you for meeting with me. I don't want to do this. And we typically will close the case out.
So that's happened.
Yes, ma'am.
When did you learn that the potential target in this case, Leon Jacob, was some sort of medical doctor?
I believe Zach told me that on the first date that I met Zach.
Did that play into any motivation that you had to investigate this case?
Not at all.
Okay, let's go ahead.
This is Officer Durant with the Houston Police Department, Major Federal Division Career Criminal Squad. Today's date is March 7, 2017. We are currently located at a Chase Bank, located off of the Belt Lane in Westheimer. We're working hard for high investigation. A cooperating informant is going to assist us in making calls to suspect Leon Jacob. Set up a meeting for him to meet up with myself, Officer Durant, who will be working in an undercover capacity.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Hey, listen, I'm gonna set up a meeting with you tomorrow so we can finish this, okay?
Okay.
All right. Can you meet tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll clear my schedule, no problem.
Okay. And I'm gonna bring with me the Navy SEAL guy because he wants, so we can get this done. I want to really finish so we can be good, okay?
Okay, so you're taking care of all problems, right?
All right. We're gonna go to a restaurant though, right?
At this point, you heard the defendant say, we're going to take care of both problems, right? Did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that the first time that you became aware that there was more than one potential complainant?
It was.
And were you able to observe Zach's reaction whenever the defendant said, are you going to take care of both problems?
I did.
What was his reaction?
He looked at me and kind of said, like, what do I do?
And what did you tell him?
I motioned with my hand, keep talking.
And were you able to see Lieutenant Malden do the same thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Whatever you want, but we're taking care of all problems.
What problem?
Both of the individuals we're talking about.
Okay.
No, you know what I mean. Her and him.
Oh, you mean batteries? Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about my issue and Valerie's issue.
Okay, all right.
Are they both going to be taken care of?
Yeah. We'll talk about it tomorrow. He'll take care of them.
You'll take care of both of them?
Yeah.
Valerie wants to talk to you.
I thought Valerie wanted them to stop talking to her because he raped her.
Is what?
You told me that she told me that Valerie doesn't want him to talk to her, right?
No, Valerie wants to talk to you about what she wants to do with her ex-husband.
Okay, that's good. All right, just bring her with you tomorrow.
Okay, and Meghan will be taken care of too this week?
Yeah.
All right, good.
We'll talk tomorrow, all right? Just make sure that we meet tomorrow, right?
Listen, I need my computer back.
Okay, I'll get you the computer too.
I mean, the computer I need back like ASAP because I had to do research with that and I need to be able to work on it.
I have the research. Yes, I told you to put them on a USB, okay?
I know you told me, I trust you implicitly. I just need a computer back so I can do some stuff with it.
Okay, I'll get you the computer too.
Yeah, no problem. And the collateral came out fine?
Yes, it's fine with me. Yes.
All right. And you going to Pittsburgh?
He's gonna talk to you about that. I mean, like, it's better. He has a better idea. Like I told you, it's much better than me in this kind of stuff.
Are you going to deal with it locally?
Possibly. We'll talk tomorrow when we meet, okay?
Yeah, so what time do you want me?
Around 2, 3, I'll give you a call, okay?
Yeah, 'cause I have court in the morning, at like 8:30, and then after that I'll be free.
Okay, then that's fine. We'll do it after like that's why I said 2, 3, because I figured you could.
But he can take care of this?
Yes, that's his job. We'll talk about it later, alright? Bye.
So we'll talk about it then. And so what time where do you want to meet?
I told you I'll tell you tomorrow, okay?
Okay, so everything is going to be okay?
Everything will be fine.
Alright, because I need her with these issues, and then things are okay.
Okay, alright,
I don't want to say to her now. I was able to get Stacy bond, my lawyer was able to get better hearing for the section, the no contact order, because the state did not keep up their bargain, and you can see it online now. So if she doesn't show up to that, then the new hearing that she had set in a couple weeks, then everything else goes away.
Okay, alright. Okay.
Alright. How are you doing? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm always okay, man. I'm always okay.
Just asking as your friend, that's why I asked.
I'm doing good, man. I'm just working.
Well, good.
Like I told you, I was going to Qatar last week, so, I'm back, so.
As my friend, I trust you. And you owe me a couple of full games.
Sure, I got you.
Well, you got me. You said you were hustling me. I don't think that.
You're gonna lose, of course. You're gonna lose, of course, buddy. Don't worry, man. But we'll see tomorrow, all right?
All right, no problem. Bye.
So at that point, did you have a meeting potentially set up for the following day?
We did.
And, go ahead.
What's he mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. And prior to that meeting, did you then have a second call with the defendant arranging the meeting place for that meeting?
We did.
This is Officer Durant with the Houston Police Department, Meghan Verikas Testifies, Career Criminal Squad. Today's date is March 8th, 2017. We're going to place a call to suspect Leon Jacobs and advise him of meet time and location for a murder for hire investigation.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, man?
Hey, can we meet at 3:30 at Post Oak Drill?
Yeah, I'll check on that problem.
At 3:30, right?
Where is that again?
Just pull it up on navigation, Post Oak Drill. It's a really good restaurant. I heard good stuff about it, so, I figured we'll go eat.
It's me and you?
No, with also the guy. And, I like really Valerie, I'm really
Yeah,
Valerie.
I'm talking to you, yeah.
Alright, yeah.
I had court this morning.
How did it go?
It went okay, it was spoken, but I need for at least 2 weeks.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it today over lunch. The guy that Reagan does take care of business, so we'll talk. Yeah, he's the best, man. I mean, we'll talk about it later, okay?
Okay, because she's gone, all of this goes away.
Okay, well,
Are you still watching her at all?
yes, we have people over here.
She's still here, going to work and everything?
Yes,
She's on her police custody?
no, they actually left her alone. They don't have a car anymore at her house.
You take care of it here.
Yes.
Alright, good, and after this week, I'm going to New York on Saturday.
Okay, cool, man. We'll talk about it and when I see you at lunch, alright?
Post up around 3:30, I'll be there.
Copy that.
So did y'all actually conduct the
This is
meeting?
Officer Durant with the Houston Police Department, Meghan.
Did you actually conduct the meeting at the Post Oak Grill?
No, we did not.
Okay, where did you end up having that meeting, that initial meeting with the defendant and Valerie McDaniel?
We met at an Olive Garden located at Southwest Freeway and Buffalo Speedway.
And was that location in Harris County, Texas?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and do you recall what date you had the meeting at the Olive Garden?
It was March the 8th, 2017.
Prior to going to the Olive Garden, does your division and your squad take steps in order to ensure, first off, your safety while you're at the Olive Garden?
Yes, we do.
What kind of things do you all do to ensure that you're going to be safe while you're meeting with the defendant?
Typically what we do is we'll have surveillance inside of a location set up before we actually arrive, and we'll have surveillance outside as well as a rescue team, just in case anything happens.
In this particular case, were you able to get people inside the business and set up like you would want them to be prior to the defendant and Valerie McDaniel entering the establishment?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
The defendant and Ms. McDaniel were already inside the restaurant prior to us arriving.
And once that happens, do y'all roll with it, or what do y'all do?
We have to roll with it.
So what do you do?
We were met by the defendant outside as we were parking the car, and we went inside the restaurant and followed him to his table.
So he actually came out of the restaurant when y'all pulled up and met you there.
Correct.
When he came outside of the restaurant, was Valerie McDaniel there with him?
No.
Do you see the person in the courtroom here today that initially came out of that Olive Garden to greet you and Zach?
I do.
Could you, for the record, point to him and identify something that he's wearing?
He's sitting right over here wearing a dark suit, maybe dark gray with a light blue tie and glasses.
Your Honor, may the record reflect this witness has identified the defendant?
The record is so reflects.
So once he comes outside of the Olive Garden, do other undercover officers also go inside the Olive Garden?
Yes.
Who goes inside the Olive Garden, if you remember?
It was Officer Gutierrez, Officer Martinez at one table. It was Sergeant Frank Quinn at another table, and Officer Mihalko at the same table with Sergeant Quinn.
And are they dressed in plain clothes?
Yes, they are.
What's the purpose of them entering after you all are there?
Just to make it seem normal. And like I said, they were already in there, so they didn't have time to set up.
Okay. Did you begin having a conversation with the defendant?
We did.
And did you record that conversation?
Yes, ma'am.
And did I have you review that conversation prior to you coming to court today?
Yes, you did.
Judge, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Officer Durant, I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit number 30. Is this the disc that I had you review prior to you coming to court today?
Yes, ma'am.
And does it contain the conversations that you had with the defendant and Valerie McDaniel at the Olive Garden back on March 8th, 2017?
It does.
Your Honor, at this time, State offers State's Exhibit number 30. I'll tender to opposing counsel for any objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
States 30 is admitted.
Can I be published, Judge?
Well, that depends. How long is it?
It's long.
Their lunch is supposed to be here. Do we know if it's here yet?
Yes, sir, that's what they're checking on right now.
Let's break for lunch. Break for lunch, don't discuss the case, and we'll hear that as soon as you get back. Stand in recess.